So welcome everybody to this week's Zoom webinar. It's great to see everyone. And I've been doing these webinars, I think, since April. And based on today's turnout, obviously, I probably should have been doing more myself, because I've been featuring a lot of different resources around the area. But it seems like a lot of people are, want to know more about senior housing. So it's music to my heart. So it's great to be here today. I'm glad to see everyone. I hope everybody's doing well. And today we're going to talk about understanding senior housing. I have a lot of information to share with everyone. And so let's get this going. So a little bit about me. If you don't know who I am, I have been in the senior housing business for over 30 years. It's pretty much what I've done my entire career is worked in senior housing. I've held executive positions for some of the leading senior living companies in the country, including 3 in this area. The last time I count, I've overseen 75 senior living communities in 14 different states. So I have been around, and back in 2008, I realized that there was a need that people needed some help understanding all about the differences of senior housing and the ins and outs about senior housing. So 12 years ago, I formed my company, Senior Housing Solutions, and that's all that I do is help people through the decision process of selecting a senior housing community. I primarily work in Collier and Lee counties. I'm very active in the local community that focuses on seniors. I am a native Floridian. And so, if you're kind of curious what a native Floridian looks like, this is what we look like. You can't tell because I'm sitting down, but I happen to be very tall. I have lived in Southwest Florida for 28 years. I'm a tennis player, I'm a scuba diver, and I'm actually a certified barbecue judge. So I go around the state of Florida. It has nothing to do with senior housing, and I go around the state of Florida and judge barbecue. It's a lot of fun, and I have some pretty good barbecue, sometimes not so good. Again, I'm tall, so if you ever see me, you probably see me at the grocery store or something, but I'm 6'7", and yes, I used to play basketball, and so we'll kind of get that out of the way. So I get this question a lot, and if there's one thing that I can, when should I consider a senior living community? And if there's one thing that you should take away from today's webinar, it's this, that it's better to be 5 years too early rather than 5 minutes too late. There's too many times, there's too many people that I meet, and they wait for a crisis to occur. They wait for something to happen, and I get the call. Usually it's on a weekend, probably on a holiday weekend, and they say, Bruce, I went to your seminar, or I heard you, and you always said it's better to be 5 minutes too late or five years too early, but we weren't ready, and now we're in a crisis. And it's just no way to make an intelligent and a well thought through decision. And a lot of these communities will have medical criteria to get in, and so there's going to be a medical acceptance, and so we'll talk about that a little bit later. But again, this is, you want to do this earlier rather than later. You don't want to wait for something to happen. You want to be proactive in this whole process. So I hear this a lot. I'm never going to need care. It's never going to happen to me. And denial is not that river that runs in Egypt. And it's the fact is that the majority of people are going to need care at some point in their life. According to Business Week, 65% of people over 75 will need long-term care. It's probably even more now with with COVID going on. But that's an interesting and very realistic statistic, that 65% of people over 75 will need long-term care. I hear this a lot as well, and we talk about denial, and denial comes in a lot of shapes and forms. But I hear this a lot. We're going to take care of one another. We'll take care of it. If my husband or my wife needs care, I'll take care of her, and she'll take care of me. So what does that look like? So it's important to recognize that women, and you all, who are on this call, the women live 5 to 10 years longer than us men. That's from the New England Journal of Medicine. And so, that's a very important statistic, because as husbands, we have to recognize that our wives are probably going to outlive us. And, and so what are we going to do? What is our plan to protect our wives when something happens to us? On the other side, if something does happen to a husband and the wife is living, what plan is in place? And so you really need to start thinking about that and recognize that, you all are going to live, the women are going to outlive us men. And so you definitely need to have a plan in place to protect one another. And so the question is, when something happens to one person, what will the other person do? And what will their life be like? And so, there's so many times where, I'm meeting with a couple and, they'll say, well, we're going to take care of one another. And then something happens to one. And then all that responsibility is on the shoulders of the remaining person. I met with a couple the other day, and the husband has Parkinson's, pretty bad shape Parkinson's, and he's just in major denial. He just does not want to do anything, doesn't want to move. And, and the sad fact of it is that he's going to need care. He's going to need care. And all of that is going to be on the wife's shoulders to take care of him. And she's not in any position to do that. So these are the things you have to start thinking about and being realistic about who's going to, what is our life going to be like and who's going to take care of each other. There are many times where, the husband took care of all the household things, and I know in our house, I take care of everything that happens around the house. And there's always something that needs to be repaired. There's always something breaking. There's always something that needs to be, fixed. And so, if something happens to me, my wife, I'm not sure if she can, take care of that or wants all that responsibility to do all that. And, and there's a lot of times where the husband has taken care of all the financial affairs, and then he passes away, and the wife, has never, or hasn't balanced a checkbook in years and years and years, and doesn't even know where things are financially. So, it's very important for people to be on the same page, for people to, if you haven't been handling the financial affairs, to get more involved with everything, because, things do happen. There are times where, and I had a couple the other day, or probably about a month ago, and the wife handled all the social affairs. So she did all the, the social planning and dinner with all their friends and everything. And she was pretty much the buffer. And so unfortunately she passed away. And when she passed away, the husband had no buffer. And so, he didn't care how he looked. He wasn't cleaning his clothes. He wasn't shaving. And he would just say whatever he wanted to say. And it got to a point where he actually applied to a community, and they turned him down because he wasn't socially acceptable. And so, these are very important things. These are realistic things that happen. And so there are times where, the wife predeceases the husband, and now the husband's pretty much lost because the wife's been doing all the social stuff and the husband doesn't know what to do. So these are important questions to ask yourselves. So I hear this a lot, I'm just gonna roll the dice. I'm just gonna take my chances, and again, denial comes in a lot of different shapes and forms. And so what does that look like? And so, again, it's always better to be proactive rather than reactive when making an important decision. If you're waiting for a crisis to occur, and something to force you into this decision, you're waiting too long. And I said, making a decision in a crisis mode is not a good idea. And really, do you want to decide where you want to live, or do you want someone else to make that decision for you? And that's important, because you want to live in a community and make friends and be in a nice place, and make sure that that's your choice of where you want to live. And if you have to wait for your children to make those decisions for you, you may not like what they're choosing for you. And they may decide someplace based on location because maybe it's close to where they live, but that might not be where you want to live. No one ever expects to need care. However, most people will need some level of care in their life. And this is, sort of the reality of it, but, nursing homes are filled with people who never thought they would end up there. And I can't take you there now, but, if we went on a tour of a nursing home, everyone would say, I never thought I would need care. I never thought I'd end up here. And that's the reality of it, is that the majority of people are going to need care at some point in their life. And so you got to have to, change your thinking, because again, denial is very easy to play with, and people just, put this whole decision in a little box and say, I'll think about it in a year from now. I'll think about it 5 years from now. And all of a sudden, a crisis occurs. Again, I hear this a lot again. I enjoy where I live, and we do. We live in beautiful Southwest Florida. It's great here. We have a wonderful lifestyle. But how will your life change when you or your spouse starts needing care? So that's a very important question to ask yourselves. And what happens is that burden is placed on the spouse and is on your family. So if you decide to stay where you are, and you say, I can't move, I watch the sunsets every night, I have great neighbors, but that burden is placed on your spouse and on your family to care for you. And is that really what you want? And then, if you decide to stay in your home, how can you sustain yourself in your home as you get older? So, look around your home, can you sustain yourself? Can you get food? Can you get care? What happens if there is an emergency at 3 o'clock in the morning? So can you sustain yourselves over a period of time in your home as you get older? So I had a client that was really struggling with this decision. And I went to her house, and she had this big dining room table. And she told me she, hosted many parties and had many Thanksgiving dinners with her family and everything. And everywhere we looked, this dining room table was her focus. She could not, she needed to bring that dining room table. And every place we looked, it was really hard to fit that dining room table into these, into an apartment. So, to a point where I thought maybe I'll go in there one night and, get my little saw and chop this table in half, because it's just a table. And unfortunately, she fell. She fell before she was able to move, and had to go into, a rehab facility. Couldn't bring her dining room table. And so, the thing is that it's just a dining room table. Or, when people start thinking, I see the sunset every night, and there's dolphins out there jumping in the Gulf of Mexico. It's just a view. And if you start needing care, that dining room table or that china cabinet or those dolphins out there, they're not going to take care of you. So you have to be realistic and think about, yes, you're going to have to downsize. Yes, you can't bring everything with you, but it's just furniture. And so, again, you have to be realistic when you're thinking about all this. And again, a lot of this comes back to denial, because people will say, I got to bring my dining room table, or I have to bring my china cabinet. And it's all about denial, because they're just trying to find an excuse not to do something. If you stay in your home and you wait, you're not going to be in any condition to move, and your options are going to be very limited and very expensive. So, and I know if I probably took a poll today and I said, would you rather stay in your home or move to a senior living community? And I would say the majority of people probably would say, I'm going to stay in my home. So is that the right answer? So I have a little story. I've never tried this at home, and so I'm not some weird person who does this, but there's a little story that says if you take a frog and you put a frog in boiling water, the frog will immediately jump out. But if you take a frog and you put a frog in lukewarm water and you gradually turn up the heat on the range, the frog will cook himself to death. The frog doesn't realize that the water around him is getting too hot. And that's what happens when people stay in their homes too long. they don't realize that the water around them is getting too hot until it's too late. I have a 91-year-old mom who lives by herself in a sterile, and even though this is what I do as a business, I can't get my mom to move. And so I talk to her, and sometimes she's ready, and sometimes there's things breaking in her house, and she's all ready. But that water around her is hot, and she doesn't realize it. And so, you know, these are the things that you have to start thinking about. My wife and I, you know, back, you know, a few months ago, my wife and I took my mom out to a movie, and we went to the matinee, saw a movie, had a nice little lunch and everything. Came back, her whole house was flooded. There was a pipe that burst behind her sink, and there was just water everywhere. And so now you're dealing with somebody who is pretty much by herself, 90 years old, and dealing with, you know, water damage and insurance companies and contractors. It's a nightmare. It's very stressful, very difficult. So, you know, these are the things, you know, as you start thinking about, you know, your life and, you know, can you sustain yourself in your home? You really need to take a step back and say, you know, is the water around me getting a little warm? You know, is it getting a little warm? So, you know, everybody says, you know, I'm going to bring in care. You know, I'm going to stay home. You know, when I need care, I'm just going to hire help. Hold on one second. So, you know, that's a very common thing. There are, you know, probably about 110 home health care agencies in town just because of that. And so what does that look like? I'm just going to bring in help. So, you know, and I think it's, for someone who has a, you know, they're recovering from shoulder surgery or knee surgery, I think it works. So I think on a short-term basis, I think home care works, but it does not solve things on a long-term basis. It's just a Band-Aid, especially now with COVID going on, and you have all these aides who are, you know, showing up and going back to your home and going back to their family, or maybe caring for multiple people. That's a huge problem right now. And what happens is you become very isolated in your home. So you're not getting out, you're not socializing, you're waiting around for this home health care person to show up. And so you become very isolated in your house. It's very hard to manage, and it's very expensive. So managing, you know, all of a sudden now you are managing people to come into your home that you basically don't know. And sometimes they show up, sometimes they don't show up. And sometimes you like them, sometimes they don't like you. So it's very hard. And the other problem that the home health care companies are facing is that, you know, for what they're paying the home health care person, let's just say it's, you know, $15, $17 an hour, and all of a sudden Target is offering $15, $17 an hour. So what's the choice that someone has? Would they rather help somebody and help them in the shower and help them, you know, get dressed and with the medications and everything, or would they rather work over at Target and make the same amount of money and get benefits and everything? So the home healthcare business is very challenged by staffing, and again, it's also very expensive. It's very stressful. And again, you know, these people, sometimes they show up, sometimes they don't show up. There were a lot of lessons learned during Hurricane Irma, because everybody thought they had their caregivers and everybody thought they were taken care of and their caregivers were there. Well, here comes Irma, and all the caregivers hightailed it because they had to take care of their family and their 8 kids and their husband and grandma and grandpa. And so a lot of people were left extremely vulnerable during the hurricane. And unfortunately, you know, because you know, you might be able to manage it today, but because you're hiring somebody because you're not well, you're very vulnerable to abuse, exploitation. There's a lot of identity theft that occurs. And so you really got to be careful with all that. And it's very hard, you know, and there's some good ones out there, but it's very hard to find reliable and trustworthy and qualified help. Extremely difficult. And again, there's limited number of people, aides in our area. And you're not going to get the same person. So you're going to have you know, you might have one person during the day, you might have somebody in the evening, you might have somebody over the weekend. So these are different people, different personalities, all all different, issues with this. And basically you're at home and you have a stranger in your home and you have nothing in common with them. And so you've hired somebody to come in your home that you have nothing in common with. And, it's not like these people are, college educated or, or well-traveled. So, the conversations that you're going to have with these people are going to be extremely limited. It's also very awkward because in this area, there's typically a 3 to 4 hour minimum that you have with a home health care company. And it doesn't mean that they're going to be working all those 4 hours. So a lot of times they're sitting around watching television or reading a book. And so, it's kind of awkward having, basically a stranger in your space. So why should someone consider a senior living community? And so the future, the key one is future planning and peace of mind. And it's really interesting because I've been doing this for over 30 years. And all the people that, that I have helped make this decision, I would say, 99.9% of all of them will tell you, best decision I made. I only wish I would have made it sooner. And they're telling that because now they have the peace of mind. Now they can get on with their life and enjoy their life and have their friendships and enjoy their activities and not have to worry about, the what ifs in the world. So, that peace of mind is huge. And really you're protecting your spouse, you're protecting your family. The maintenance-free aspect of the senior living community is wonderful. And it's huge to know that you can make one phone call and get your refrigerator fixed or get your disposal fixed or your air conditioning or, and you don't have to wait around for these people. You make one phone call, you can go do your thing and it's all taken care of. You don't have to pay for it. You don't have to tip them. So, that whole maintenance free is so great. I think back after Irma, there was a lot of, people had damage in their home and I had damage in my home and, trying to get workmen to repair my cage and my roof, major hassle. And not that, the senior communities weren't, they did, some communities did have some damage, but the residents didn't have to worry about that. The communities took care of everything and paid for everything, took care of the contractors, and the residents, were completely, got on with their lives. So isn't that a great thing? The communities have, these communities in this area have very active social programs. The activities, these communities in this area are amenity rich, and there's a lot of social things that are going on. Tonight, if you come to my house tonight, I think tonight is taco night. So we're having tacos tonight. But my wife doesn't have a choice. We don't have a menu of choices every night. And wouldn't it be great that you can, every night you have a menu saying, maybe I want tacos, maybe I want salmon, maybe I want chicken, maybe I want a steak tonight. And so every night in the different communities, you have a menu. And typically there's a chef and they're preparing meals. And isn't that a luxury of knowing that, you have every night you can choose, maybe you just want an omelet, maybe you just want, a veggie plate. So what a luxury that is to know that you don't have to hassle with dining. At some point, transportation might be very important. People might, have to decrease their driving, especially driving at night. So knowing that you have transportation services available, knowing that, there are, group activities and group excursions, which I think are a lot of fun. Having access to on-site healthcare pretty much is a lifesaver. Knowing that should anything ever happen, that there's on-site care available to you. And we probably don't talk about this enough, but being able to have lifelong friendships with like-minded people. So knowing that the people around you have similar backgrounds and similar interests, that's huge. And there's a lot of studies that have been done about the correlation between loneliness and depression and dementia. And, knowing that there's people around that you never have to be lonely is really a great thing. And really, by living in a senior living community, you're improving the quality of your life. You're taking all the worries away. You have access to all these different social programs. You're probably eating better. You have access to on-site health care. You have friends around. So your life is totally improving. And you know, the communities have a lot of fun. And so I'm sure many of you have friends that live in many communities, and people are having a lot of fun. There's happy hours, there's parties, there's a lot of things that are going on. So as we talk about the senior living communities in this area, we're going to talk, I'm going to kind of break this down. There's 3 different types of senior living communities. So there's rental, there's condominium, and then there's a buy-in, or what we call CCRC. And we're going to talk about each one of these separately. So the rental communities, you're going to pay a non-refundable community fee, and I'll talk numbers in a second. So you're going to pay a non-refundable community fee. It's typically about $2,000 to $3,000, and then you're going to sign an annual lease. You're going to pay rent on a monthly basis. There are some communities in town that go on a month-to-month basis. So some people like that. As you need care, you're going to pay for higher levels of care. So, you know, if you needed assisted living or if you needed memory care, those services are available, but at a different charge or a different rate. There's a condominium type of community in this area, and that title is in your name. So you own this. This is a real estate transaction. So title is in your name. You own it, you can buy it, you sell it, you negotiate the price, it's totally yours. And there's some pros and cons of real estate. You know, if we were talking 2008 when the real estate market was tanking, I would say there's probably a lot of negatives of real estate. But we're talking 2020 and real estate market's strong, still strong. And so a lot of people like the fact that they own real estate and that there's equity. So in addition to purchasing your condo, you're also going to pay an ongoing monthly charge. So you're going to buy your condo, but you're also going to pay a monthly charge that's going to take care of your different services and amenities of that community. Mm-hmm. So there could be assessments. So it's just important to recognize that there could be condo assessments. Some people, you know, if you have a pre-existing condition, there's no medical criteria to move there. So that's a plus for a condominium. And then if you need care,
no, I didn't hear anything.
You're going to pay for care as you need it. So on one side you have equity and you own real estate, and then should you need care, you're going to pay out of pocket for your care. So when I got in this business 30 years ago, when I saw the acronym CCRC, and I thought, wow, what does that stand for? And at that time, you know, I was working at Bentley Village, and I thought, you know, that stands for Country Club Retirement Community. And in this area, that's really what the CCRCs are. You know, these are country club retirement communities, and these are the big players in town. I think everybody probably knows who they are, but these are the big players in town. But CCRC stands for Continuing Care Retirement Community. So that's really what it stands for. There's a plan right now to change CCRCs to call them life plan communities. So you might see that in advertisements or when you're on tours and they say they're a life plan community. Basically the same thing as a CCRC. They're just changing the name. They thought it was a little bit softer and a little bit, they thought continuing care meant more nursing care rather than independent living. So you'll see that as you look around. So kind of the deal with the CCRC is that you're not buying real estate, but you are buying a contract that provides an obligation to provide care and services over your lifetime. So it's basically an insurance product that guarantees you care and services over your lifetime. You're going to pay an entrance fee. And again, we'll talk numbers in a second, but you're going to pay an entrance fee. And so, you know, that you're not buying real estate, but sometimes you think it's real estate, but you're going to pay, you know, based on the price, but you're going to pay an entrance fee, sort of like a membership to a country club. And then you're going to pay an ongoing monthly charge. The key thing about the CCRCs is that there's going to be a medical and a financial acceptance criteria to move in. And this is where a lot of people get caught short. Remember, it's better to be 5 years too early rather than 5 minutes too late. And a lot of people wait too long, or they wait for their health to change in order for them to say, okay, now is the time. And then they apply and they don't get accepted. And so the quality CCRCs are very strict on a medical perspective. And so, again, you want to do this way before you think you're ready to do it, because out there's going to be this hurdle, and it's called the medical acceptance. And in this area, there are for-profit and nonprofit communities. So kind of breaking down the 3 different types with healthcare, in a rental community, you start off independent living. So just as you are right now, you're independent, you come and go, it's your apartment, you decorate it, you have guests as you want. So you start off independent living, and then should you need assisted living, then you could progress to assisted living. And a lot of people don't know what assisted living is, but assisted living is when you need assistance with certain daily activities, with bathing, dressing, medication reminding. That would fall more under the assisted living. And there are some communities in this area, rental communities, that offer memory care. So in the condominium, again, you start off independent living, and then you can progress to assisted living should you need it. And in the CCRCs, you start off independent living, you progress to assisted living, they have skilled care or rehab, and memory care. So you can see the CCRCs are a little bit more comprehensive, but you are also paying for that. And again, some people may not qualify for that as well. Financially, how they look. So rental communities in this area, for sort of a small studio in East Naples, you're probably about $1,600. So I would say, for a 1-bedroom, you're probably in the, $2,000 to $3,000 range. The rental communities go pretty much up to about $6,000 to $7,000 a month. So there is quite a range, but it depends on where in Naples or where in Fort Myers, and the size of the apartment, and obviously the number of people living in that apartment. The condominium, they start off about $250,000, so you would buy that. They go up to about $1.5 million, and your monthly fee for one person is about $1,900 a month. And the CCRCs, your entrance fees start at about $350,000, and they go up to, in this area, they're about $2 million. So again, quite the spread on the different entrance fees. And the monthly fee goes from about $3,000 to about $9,000. This is based on single occupancy. So, if you were a couple, you would be paying more on a monthly basis. You don't pay double. Like if you were looking at a CCRCs, you don't pay double. You do, but there is a second person entrance fee and a second person monthly fee. The CCRCs got sort of creative a few years ago, because many years ago, the CCRCs, you paid your entrance fee, and after 4.5 years, there'd be nothing given back to your estate. And the market felt, and people felt that they wanted something given back to their families or back to their estate. And so the CCRCs adapted to that, and now they offer a 0 refund plan. They may offer a 50% plan. They may offer a 70% plan, or even an 80 or a 90% refund plan. And so what happens in those communities is that you are paying an upcharge. So you're paying, you're going to be paying more in order to have a 50% refund, or you're going to pay more in order to have an 80% refund. So just depending upon your situation and depending upon obviously your age and your investments, you really need to take a look at that and see which plan works best for you. I would definitely talk to your financial advisor, and they probably have some formula worked out that says if you live X period of years, then this plan is better than the other plan. But it does, from a consumer perspective, when you look at a price sheet, it does get a little confusing because you see all these different columns of different pricing. But basically, one has a zero refund, one has a higher refund, and you're just paying an upcharge for that. There are specialty communities in this area, so people who do wait too long or don't qualify. There are freestanding assisted living communities, and they start off about $3,500 a month. There are freestanding memory care communities. These seem to be popping up like Walgreens these days, and they run about $5,000 a month. And if you can get in, there are skilled nursing facilities, and they run about $7,000 a month. It's important to recognize that these are base prices, and if you start needing assistance with getting help in the shower or med management or medication management or help transferring from your bed to a wheelchair or help getting dressed, those are levels of care. So you could be a level 1, a level 2, a level 3, and some communities go all the way up to a level 8. And each level you're paying more for. You're paying roughly about $800 on each level. So, if you call ABC Assisted Living and say, what are your prices? And they say, well, our prices start at $3,500. But then you move there and all of a sudden you're paying $6,000. It's because you are in need of those levels of care. But it's very important on the front end to know how much those levels of care cost and how they're used or how they're rated, because many communities go on a point system. So if you need help in the shower, that might be 10 points. If you need help with your medications, that might be another 15 points. And so those different points will add up, and then that will move you into either a level 1, a level 2, or a level 3. So it's just important to recognize that there are times where I have felt that some of the communities, it's been more of a profit center for them. And some of my clients have been given, say, a level 3. And I look at it and I'm like, no, they're a level 1 or they're a level 2. And so we go back and we have to reevaluate everything. And more times than not, I'm usually right on the care. But it is sometimes, because it is a corporate world and a profit center, sometimes, they're putting pressure on to, make more money or build up that bottom line. And so you need to be careful with all that. And unfortunately, it does happen in this industry. So just to talk a little bit about long-term care insurance, I know some people probably have it. And then I have a line that says the time to review your policy was yesterday. So get your policy out, take a look at your long-term care policy, make sure you know what it covers. It doesn't do you any good in a drawer and you not knowing what it covers. So call your agent, call the company, find out what it covers. And it's important you need to know what it covers and what it doesn't cover. And probably when you got your policy, there probably wasn't a thing called assisted living. And so you need to find out, does your policy cover assisted living, or does it cover home care? And what is the daily benefit? And what are the triggering mechanisms to get your policy enacted? So, and so typically in a long-term care policy, a triggering event activates your policy. So just like any type of insurance, if like for example, if you had car insurance, you can't file a claim with your car insurance company because, unless you had an accident. So you can't file a claim with your long-term care insurance unless you actually need some type of assistance. So, it's important to recognize, and understand what these triggering events are. Most policies will require that you need assistance with 2 or more what we call activities of daily living, or ADLs. So these are what I'm talking about with bathing or dressing or dining or ambulation or help with medication. So, most policies, those are the triggering events that you need assistance with 2 or more of those. And most policies, again, and most policies have a deductible period of, 90 to 100 days, on the front end. A lot of times that's tied into, Medicare. But again, I'm not sitting here in front of your, looking at your policy, so I can't tell you specifically what your policy covers, but get that policy out, dust it off, look at it, understand what it covers, what it doesn't cover, so you're better prepared. It's also important to, as we talk about specifically CCRCs, where many times your care is included. So in a CCRC, you're going to pay a monthly charge, and that monthly charge doesn't change when you start needing care. So many times with your long-term care policy, you can still get reimbursed for your policy. So even if care is included, the community can provide you a breakdown of what your care costs would normally be, and then you can get reimbursed through your long-term care policy. So again, important to know this up front. So what is a senior housing advisor? We all have legal advisors, and we have tax advisors, and we have financial advisors, but what is a senior housing advisor? And so, the way I look at it is, you wouldn't buy a home without a home inspection. And why would you make a move to a senior living community without knowing everything you could know about that community? And so, that's a very important piece to this whole thing, because you want to move to a community and make sure you don't want to move again. And you don't want to find out that this community is in financial trouble, or has staffing issues, or has, a lot of COVID cases. And so, these are the things that I do, and what a senior housing advisor would provide you. So, as I said, we are the senior housing inspectors. I stay current with all the different places in Southwest Florida. Before COVID, I would say I stepped foot in every community in this area. Amazingly, there are about 100 different senior living communities in this area. There's 34 in Collier and 59 in Lee. And that's quite a few. And I can't imagine anyone going and visit all these different communities. You're not going to do it. So we help you, narrow this down. We look beyond the fancy decor and the slick brochures, and we evaluate communities on quality of care and services, prices and availability, financial stability, resident satisfaction, staff turnover, operational issues, right now, COVID cases, and pretty much I know the good and the bad and ugly of every community in this area. It's what keeps me very busy, because I really want to stay current with them. I have clients living at many of the different communities, and they are sort of my eyes and ears. And so I'm able to tap into people who are living in these communities, or family members who have family members at different communities. And I really get the inside scoop from them. And this is a big decision. This is a very big decision, and there's no reason why you need to do this alone. It kind of drives me crazy when I hear people say, well, I'm moving to this community because all my friends live at this community. But they have no idea about, if that's a quality community, no idea, if that community is on solid financial footing, or, what kind of healthcare surveys they've had. So, these are the things that it's important to tap into. And I always say, like, we know what you don't know. So I always get this question, so I thought I'd put it on a slide. But how do we get paid? So obviously, I'm a nice guy, but I am in business. But in most cases, my services are 100% free. So I get paid on the back end from the community once somebody moves in. So my services to you all in most cases are 100% free. And when you do move into a community, it could be next week, it could be 3 years from now, they will pay me a referral fee. The key part of all that is I need to be the point of first contact. And so if you're out there researching on your own, or going on the internet and doing your own searching, that sort of takes me out of it. And so it's better for me to be the point of first contact. Now, there are times where maybe you inquired a year ago or two years ago, and the community has not been in contact with you. If that's the case, then I'm back in the game. So, so if the community has not been working you for about 12 months, I'm back in, and they will pay me that fee. If you have contacted places, more specifically, if you looked at CCRCs and you're trying to compare, and obviously because of the magnitude of that decision, and you want my input, you can retain me for my services, and I charge an hourly fee. I also have a network. I've developed a national network of advisors across the country. I believe there's a couple on this call today. I think there's somebody from Houston today, and I think there's somebody else from San Francisco. So I have a national network of people who do what I do in other cities in the United States. I was getting a lot of people who said, I want to move back up north to be closer to my kids. Is there a Bruce up in Boston, or is there a Bruce in Tucson, or in San Francisco, or in Houston? And so that's the reason why I developed. I have vetted different advisors, and so I have people who do exactly what I do, who I would feel comfortable referring across the country. So now I'm going to open this up for questions. I'm going to stop the share, and I'm going to unmute everybody.
You are unmuted.
So, any questions so far? No questions? I'm surprised. You have?
Bruce,
Yes.
I just wanted to say I think it was an excellent presentation as an add-on to your first one, and the pictures and diagrams really helped. Thanks again.
Thank you. My pleasure. So, I'm available should anybody have one-on-one questions. I know this is a big decision. Reach out to me. This is what I do. I've been doing this for quite a while. I'm very passionate about what I do. So, reach out to me. I'm happy to help you. These webinars are great, and it's great to see that a lot of people are joining us today. Next week, I have one of my friends. Her name is Sharon Bruno, and she works at Longevity Solutions. And so they have this very innovative program that tests your DNA to tell you about, if you have anything going on internally. And so, maybe they can catch something before it gets too severe. I was just talking to somebody else, and they're like, well, maybe I don't want to know. But maybe it's good to know if you can catch something early on. For example, if you had stage 1 cancer versus stage 4. So that will be next week. And I appreciate everybody for being here. Reach out to me. I'll be sending a recorded version of this to everyone. But stay well. Wear your mask. Wear your mask wherever you go. And let's be well. And so thank you all very much for being part of this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good webinar, Bruce.